Bank is going to be reporting its Q2FY21 numbers tomorrow. So let's take a look at what we can expect as far as the estimates are concerned. Let's remember this is now the third large private to report numbers, and if it's going to be anything like what we've seen from the leaders HDFC and Kotak, it could give Bank Nifty yet another boost. Kotak's up 8% right now, so if Axis were to do something like that, I think it would really change the way people are viewing financials and banking stocks. But leaving all that aside, let's first walk you through the numbers, right? So NII 7,150 versus last year's 6,000. So 15% growth YoY. Q-on-Q as well, marginal growth, because last quarter was 6,900, so 7,100. So mild Q-on-Q growth, good YoY growth. PAT 2,700 versus a loss last year, and a massive improvement over even last quarter's 1,100 crore PAT. Operating profit 6,100 versus last year's 5,900 or last quarter's 5,800. So those are how the headline numbers are stacking up. NIMs are expected to remain stable for Axis. They currently hover around the 3.4, 3.5 mark. Last year they were 3.5. Last quarter they were 3.4. Brokerages believe it could dip slightly, so 3.3 to 3.35 is a number that most brokers are working with for the NIM. Now, provisions were very high for Axis last quarter. They were also high for ICICI. They were also high for HDFC, Kotak. What we've seen from HDFC and Kotak is that the provision has drastically reduced this quarter, Q-on-Q. So let's say that could happen in the case of Axis as well, and that's why that profit figure is looking so much elevated, 2,700 versus last quarter's 1,100 or last year's loss. So provisions being lower is also an indicator of the fact that people don't think there's going to be that much stress as was initially anticipated. So that's something to keep your eye out on. Now, while credit growth has slowed for the larger banks as well, for Axis, brokers believe 2 to 3% Q-on-Q credit growth can still happen. Core PPoP, which is your operating profit pre-provision, should grow in the mid-teens, so 10 to 15%. That's also healthy. Credit cost is expected at around 200 bips to 220 bips. We've got a lot of surprises thus far on the credit cost. The other banks have surprised us very well. So let's see what Axis does. But even 200 bips is a fairly reasonable figure, not too large. Then in terms of what we're looking out for in terms of management commentary, we obviously want the stress pool update. What's happening with the accounts in the stress pool? Have there been recoveries? Have there been additions to this? What is the outlook on recovery from these accounts? And then finally also the quantum of restructuring. So a lot of accounts would have entered restructuring, or maybe not a lot have entered restructuring. Either way, we want to hear from the management what the current position on that is, how much restructuring is required, and if so, will it have any impact on the financials whatsoever? So these are broadly the things to look out for the Axis poll. Numbers should be out tomorrow.